Hi, everybody. We're going to do a quick tutorial on how to create the flights database. Once you open your zip file and you save it on your computer or whatever you're using, in case you're using CUNY virtual machine, you'll see that there are 6 files. Five of them are the CSV files. These are your data files. And then this is your load flights.sql file. So let's open the load flights.sql file. And you'll see that I have something called set global. There's an option. I'm setting it. I'm just basically saying that, allow local in file to be uploaded. You may or may not need to use this line. Um, when I'm using Mac, and when I try to read in my file, like when I try to run this code, load data local in file, I get an error saying that I don't have sufficient access. So that's the way I'm running this line. So let's run this line. I'm also going to show you where to pick. The other thing here is we go to manage connection. There's another place where you need to fix this for the access management. So go to database, manage connections, and then highlight your local instance and go to advanced. This is another piece of code I wrote, you piece of option basically. So OPT underscore local underscore in file equals 1. You do wanna type that in this area and then save it and close it. Then hopefully you won't get any access related error. You see that now we're going to create flights database. I have this line saying create schema flights. I already have the schema. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it so that we can see how to create it from the scratch. Let's just say drop schema. So now you see I don't have that flight schema anymore. So let's create this. I go to this line and I run just this line and it says, it ran. It was green, it ran. So now, just as good practice, we usually drop the table that we're going to create. So before we go there, let's make sure that we have the schema. So refresh this list. You see the flight schema is showing up. Under the flight schema, you could have multiple tables, views, stored procedures. We will be covering this later in the semester. Let's run this code, this piece, like drop table if exists. So all I'm saying is that, hey, within this flights database, if there is a table named airlines, please drop that. The reason we do that is because down here, we're actually going to be creating this table. So we want to make sure there's no table like this ahead of time. Of course, we see that the table is already empty. We see that it's already not there, but in case you have a lot of these tables going on, it's always a good idea to drop them before you create them. So let's run it. And I ran it, I get a warning sign, right? It says, hey, you don't really have anything like, airlines table within the flights database. Now, we don't want to be always typing flights.airlines. It gets cumbersome. So one way you could avoid having to type this is you click on this flights and say set as your default schema. So once you set as your default schema, you see that your flights this is now bolded in font. Now let's run these lines and you'll see that it will run just fine, even though we don't have this flights.airports written there because we already said that, hey, this is my default schema. So any operations will just go from the default schema. So there it ran. Let's create a table called airlines, and it will have 2 columns, carrier and name, but it's going to be value as 9. So it's just a shell of the table. So we ran this. Let's refresh to see if it showed up. Yep, I see an airlines table. Let's take a look at this table. And you see the table has carrier as the first column header, name as the second column header, and the values are null. We knew that already. So let's go ahead and insert them as CSV. So what we're doing here is we're loading the data local in file. And this is the file path where I have my file saved. So you do need to change your path depending on where you saved it. And so you say you're basically saying, I have the table already named airlines, and you're loading the data into this table. And you're telling it to ignore the first row, and then you're also telling it how it's delimited and that kind of stuff. So let's run this paragraph and then see where it goes. So once you run this piece of code, you see that this is green, this worked. It read in the CSV file. Now let's take a look at this file now again. And you see that now you have values in your carrier and your names, right? So let's go back. The rest of the codes are basically you're creating these tables one at a time. Let's run the whole thing and we'll look at the output. So we ran it. The final output is actually coming from here. So once they read all the tables, you'll see that these are the tables that are here, right? Airlines, airports, flights, planes, weather. So I have 5 tables, and I'm also asking like, hey, give me the observation counts from each of these tables, and we make a table for that. So that's what you get in the output, where you see airlines is 16 observations, airports has 1397 observations, so on and so forth. Anyhow, that's just a quick run through of our SQL code that we shared this week. If you have any questions, please reach out and let me know.